a big inspiration for the first act of the book was reading Lord of the Flies much later in my life than I think a lot of other readers come to it. I think, in America it's pretty common to come to Lord of the Flies when you're 12 to 15 or something like that.
Reading it for a middle school English class.
Right. The first time I read it was 3 years ago. And for me, it was the perfect time to read it because I now have a 7-year-old boy. And so thinking about him being in the situation of those boys on that island and how gentleness and kindness kind of becomes like a frailty, like a weakness in the group, was just really affecting for me, really overpowering. And then at that same time, I remember my son had his 5th or 6th birthday party, and there was this moment before kids started arriving where you thought, oh my, is anyone going to come to this party? What if nobody comes, and how sad will he be, and how do you handle that as a parent? So that was also sort of a formative memory and kind of plays a part in that first act when Nelson has his birthday party. Part of the project of this book was thinking about the idea of having a moral code of conduct or a moral compass, and thinking about the role of kind of older institutions in our culture that give young people those codes, right or wrong, right? I'm not saying that the Boy Scouts is perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And then thinking about, how do we hold true to those codes long after our childhood? Marriage is basically a promise that you make to your partner in front of a community of people. And when you get a divorce, when your marriage falls apart, how do you communicate that to your children? What's the moral of that story? Is it okay to break your promise? What happened there? Why did community fail these two people? And fidelity, or even paying your taxes, being a good business person. How do you teach your son or daughter the right way to do things? And so the first act is sort of like these kids learning kind of a moral code, and then following them through the rest of their lives and seeing how that code applies itself or how it falls apart, and how people strive to follow a code but maybe fail. This is my new book, The Hearts of Men, and it comes out March 7th, 2017, and I'm just going to read from page 1. The bugler needs no alarm. In the musty, close canvas darkness, his smallish hands fumble for the matchbox, scratch the blue sulphurous tip against the box, the match catching and burning, and finally the golden kerosene glow of the lantern, the wick burning like a lung on fire. He yawns, rubs the sleep from his eyes. In this new light he seeks and finds his glasses, and now can make out the familiar particularities of his tent, its shadows, his things. An owl hoots from the crown of a nearby maple as the boy flaps open the tent and shivers in the pre-dawn cold. His bare feet move lightly over the well-trod camp soil. He tugs his white underwear down and, trembling, sends an arc of piss onto the big accepting fronds of the unseen ferns. It is a pleasant sound, like rainwater bouncing off a canvas awning. Then back into the tent, now that much warmer for the flame of the Coleman. It is a race until dawn. The youngest in his troop of some 30 boys, Nelson, sleeps alone. His possessions are neatly organized into piles: socks, underwear, shorts, books. Shirts and trousers hang from a line that he has erected to follow the tent's central pole. Mornings he is glad of the tent's solitude, but at nights the campsite and forest are alive with the low murmuring and high giggling of boys and their nocturnal conversations. This reminds him of his loneliness. It is the 5th summer he has visited Camp Chippewa, and the 2nd time he has had a tent to himself. Sometimes he creeps out around midnight to watch the kabuki theater of the other boys' flashlights, hear the pages of comic books turning and the plastic crinkling of candy wrappers, smell their contraband cigarettes. His father half-heartedly volunteered to bunk with him, but both parent and son recognized in this gesture something ultimately embarrassing. No, It was better for Nelson to be on his own. Perhaps at some point in the week he might gain a roommate, some other young scout badly homesick or alienated by his peers and in need of refuge, some boy who'd accidentally wet his sleeping bag. Nelson would be ready to consolidate his belongings to one side of the tent as necessary, ready to assemble another cot, ready to be helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, cheerful.